The night was alive with the roar of flames consuming the wooden structures of the village, their glow painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, the air thick with smoke, and the desperate cries of those caught in the inferno, the heat pressing against every surface like an unforgiving hand. Yet amidst the chaos a lone figure moved, with purpose his steps swift, his breath ragged, his eyes scanning the devastation for any sign of those who needed help. His name was Dane, a hunter by trade, a man of the wilds, accustomed to tracking beasts through thick forests and across rugged terrain, but tonight he hunted not prey but survivors. His boots struck against the cobbled streets, embers swirling around him as he pushed through the heat, his skin glistening with sweat, his heart pounding with urgency. Ahead the main hall had begun to collapse, the wooden beams groaning under the pressure of the consuming fire, and yet from within he heard a cry, a voice high and desperate, pleading for salvation. Without hesitation Dane surged forward, his body moving on instinct, his shoulder slamming against the weakened door, forcing it open with a loud crack. Inside the room was a furnace, the fire licking at the walls, consuming furniture and tapestries, turning what was once a grand hall into a hellscape. The smoke coiled around him, blinding his vision, stinging his eyes, but through the haze he saw her, a figure trapped beneath a fallen beam, struggling against the weight, her hands bruised, her breaths shallow, her garments tattered by the flames. He did not pause, he did not think. His hands found the scorching wood, pain lancing through his palms as he heaved, lifting the beam inch by inch until he could drag her free. She gasped, coughing, her face streaked with soot and ash, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The building gave a warning groan, the very foundation trembling, as if the fire itself sought to devour them whole. Without another word Dane lifted her into his arms, her body frail against his chest, her head lolling against his shoulder. He turned, dodging a cascade of falling embers, his legs carrying him with all the strength he could muster through the corridor that threatened to collapse at any moment. The air grew hotter, the flames roaring in triumph, but he did not falter, his steps unfaltering, his grip tightening around her form. The cool night air greeted them as he burst through the doorway, the rush of oxygen feeding the inferno behind them. Yet it no longer mattered, he had her, she was safe, her body trembling against his own, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He set her down gently, his fingers brushing against her cheek, feeling the warmth of life still within her. She looked at him, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came, only the quiet gratitude in her eyes. And then the shouts came, the sound of soldiers, their armor clanking as they surged forward, their expressions a mixture of relief and alarm. Their leader, a man with sharp features and a voice of command, rushed to the woman, dropping to his knees beside her. "My lady," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion, "we feared the worst, thank the heavens you are safe." Dane frowned, confusion flickering across his smoke-streaked face. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time, and noticed the delicate embroidery of her ruined dress, the intricate pendant around her neck, the way the soldiers bowed their heads in reverence. Realization struck him, she was no mere villager, she was royalty. Yet he did not care, he had not saved a princess, he had saved a life. The soldiers turned to him, their expressions unreadable. One stepped forward, his voice firm yet measured. "You have done a great service tonight, hunter, but do you understand who you have saved?" Dane exhaled, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion, his gaze locked onto hers. She was watching him intently, her eyes filled with something unreadable, gratitude, curiosity, something else. "Perhaps I saved someone who needed saving, that is all," he replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The leader of the soldiers nodded, though his expression remained guarded. "Her Highness will decide your fate for entering the palace grounds without permission, for touching royal blood, but tonight you are not our prisoner. Tonight you are our honored guest. Come with us, the king must hear of this." Dane hesitated, his instincts told him to leave, to vanish into the wilds, as he had always done, but he looked at her, at the silent plea in her eyes, and for reasons beyond understanding, he stayed. They led him through the charred remains of the palace, the destruction all around them, a reminder of the fragility of even the grandest of empires when faced with nature's wrath. In the great hall, what remained of it, the king stood, his robes untouched by flame, yet his face lined with grief. He listened as his men recounted the tale of his daughter's rescue, his gaze falling upon Dane with measured intensity, You are a hunter, a man of the land, and yet you risked your life for one, you did not know why. Dane met the king's gaze unwavering, because no one deserves to die like that. A silence followed, heavy and unbroken, until the king spoke again, his voice softer than before. There is honor in your words, and in your actions name your reward. Dane looked at the princess, her lips parted as if she wished to speak, but no words came. He shook his head. I ask for nothing. The king studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, but no, this hunter destiny is not so easily denied. Days passed, the ruins of the palace slowly being rebuilt, yet Dane found himself unable to leave the city, his feet carrying him to the palace gates each dawn, though he did not understand why she found him there one evening. Standing against the setting sun, her presence as quiet as the embers that still smoldered in the ruins. You could have left, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I could have, he agreed, but I did not. She smiled then, a small thing, yet it held a promise of something more, something not yet written, and for the first time Dane realized that perhaps the fire had not only destroyed, but had also forged something new.